I want to first thank everyone for joining us at the Innovation Café today. For the people that haven't been here before, I see a few names that I haven't seen before. We are a networking event, normally live on our location at Kazerne, but nowadays we are online. Hopefully soon again we will be going back to our live networking events. But for now, we're live via Zoom. Today, the presentation is being presented by Simon Dogger, designer, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his work and specifically his project, The Emotion Whisperer. Like I already mentioned before, afterwards there will be a Q&A, so you can ask all your questions then. If you do not want to be included in the video, please keep your camera off, but if you want to, you're very welcome afterwards to turn on your camera and your mic as well to ask all the questions yourself. Otherwise you can put them in the chat. So for now, I want to give the word to Simon. So Simon, please take it away.
Okay, yeah, good to know. So welcome to you all to the Innovation Cafe. I've been asked to be a speaker. So for the next hour, you will be listening to me. Hopefully, at a certain point, there will be some interaction by the Q&A. I'm very much looking forward to diving into that. Into that after this. But prior to that, I'll give you a short introduction on me and on the project. And basically, also, I have a very direct question towards you. So Margot, the organizer, she already mentioned, my name is Simon Dogger. I am obviously Dutch. I am a designer. It's very important to know, I'm not sure if you have the information, but I'm blind. So I'm visually impaired. I have a 0% of seeing. I work as an independent designer. I graduated the Design Academy in 2017. And since that time, I'm a designer. I'm able to make a profit out of it. In Dutch, we call it, I'm able to put bread on the plank, brood op de plank. Basically, it means I'm able to live from my own profession. I would consider myself to be I am a product designer. I focus upon the conceptual phase, but however, it doesn't only stick to that. I go from that design and innovation trajectory from idea to concept to prototype to minimal viable product to product. And some of the projects that I'm working on are based on my own ideas, aimed at the visually impaired target group. And these trajectories are basically depending on the phase it's in, but it is, there are, for instance, validation research or user research with cooperation partners, with external financing, technical partners. So basically that whole route, I organize, I guide that, but I'm also able to, I'm organizing everything, the money and the cooperation partners, locations, research locations, stakeholders, validation research with stakeholders. And yeah, beside that, I have also assignments coming in from organizations or art institutions who ask me to help them, advise them, and also to design for instance, inclusive forms of expositions, or to do stakeholder research for certain companies or product developers. And what I want to talk to you about is one of my projects, which is called the Emotion Whisperer. It is a tool that translates body language into emotion. That translates body language into vibration. The origin of this is based upon my own desire, my own loss, and that was the consequence of not being able to see body language caused isolation, especially in social circumstances. And I turned this into a design project. So it started off with the question that why am I feeling isolated and with a lower form of self-esteem when I found myself sitting alone at parties? So that was the base, that was the starting. And instead of turning it into a loss and being able, dealing with that, but also dealing with the psychological consequences, I turned it into a design project. And I started to objectively look at why things were happening. And in that very early phase, I went to parties, but I did some experimenting. So I asked somebody to come with me, sit behind me, and look what was going on, look at the other guests. And she would kind of observe what was going on. And I also talked to a lot of stakeholders, so other blind people. And I found out that it wasn't my doubts about whether I was nice or if I I could have had the idea that my smell was not too nice. That sounds a little bit funny, but these are the consequences, the psychological consequences of lowering self-esteem, because you start to doubt why nobody's coming to you. And actually, due to that and these conversations with blind people, I found out there is one very important social key that I miss, which is eye contact. And eye contact is very important because it enables you to look at people and find places where to go to, so to approach people. But on the way around, it is important for other people to approach you, because eye contact is it's an evolutionary mechanism, and it looks at safety, for instance. It's a very important social key. So when I found that out, there was another movement which was leading to the idea of translating body language into vibration. And basically, as a designer, I gather a lot of information. Everywhere I observe and experience things. I listen to things. I speak to people. I follow what is going on on a technical basis and on an innovation basis and by software. And just cutting it short, I came to the bright idea of capturing body language by a pair of glasses with an integrated camera. And that video of conversation partners is sent to an app on a smartphone. And that app is able to recognize body language and then transfers it to a wobble on the arm that translates it into a vibration. That is the concept. That's the idea. And what I did, I spoke to a lot of people, software engineers, robotics, app developers, people using artificial intelligence. So many people with a professional background to turn that idea to a concept. And well, from that concept, I was able to get cooperation partners with, for instance, the University of Amsterdam, the Technical University of Eindhoven. There is a organization for the visually impaired in the Netherlands. I arranged the funding for it. Probably there are some more. Yeah, I found a technical partner, two technical partners, one for the first wearable, the other one for the second wearable. And so I developed a prototype, and to sketch out what happened, because I graduated with this in 2017. And basically what has been done so far is I have, or we, because it's done with cooperation partners, we have focused ourselves primarily on the fundamental part, that is, if you can learn and recognize information through the skin. So that's very important, because that's one, I would say that is a component which is not known yet. So information through the skin is basically, how do you translate a signal of, let's say, body language, let's say a smile, and how can you transfer that through the skin through a vibration? And so what you need to learn is, are people able to learn these patterns? And then are people able to recognize these patterns? So if you get a pattern, a tactile pattern from a smile, or a tactile pattern of somebody nodding his head, or another tactile pattern of somebody, any kind of body language. So then it needs to be very clear, that the difference needs to be very clear. And in the end, it is important that these tactile patterns are intuitively felt. So we focused upon that. We developed two prototypes for the wearable with vibration parts. And the first prototype was not successful at all. So it wasn't able to translate information through the skin. The second wearable is more potential. It's been developed, but it hasn't been validated yet. And well, also I have to mention that this validation research should have been done by the University of Amsterdam and that organization for the visually impaired. But all of these researches were postponed, perhaps also cancelled. The status is not confirmed yet due to Corona. That's basically it. That whole innovation trajectory and design trajectory was also based upon insights, experience, so crucial things. At this point, I'm planning to develop a second prototype product. So I have already developed a second prototype wearable, but in 2021, I want to develop a second prototype product. That means a pair of glasses with a camera, an app on a smartphone that is able to recognize body language and then send that to the wearable. So a working prototype that can be used in daily life. That's my goal. And there are some, some interesting developments. For instance, I am also in an early stage of cooperation with a company or a project that is developing a new form of a meeting room. So you've all entered through Zoom. When I heard Margot speaking, I heard a very poor connection. So, you know, I could hear her, but some parts, so very often some parts of the line or of her audio were cut away. So that's very tiresome. It's a poor connection, doesn't lead to a good quality conversation. And they are developing a meeting platform that is not only of a high quality, but is also safe. So you can verify authentication of who is who. So for instance, for you know, examinations in any form, that's very useful. But the combination with their tool, their meeting room, and making it also accessible for the visually impaired, that is on many levels, that's very beneficiary. For them, it leads to publication, PR, but you know, it's also in their mission and vision to make it for everybody. So, and for me, it's a very efficient way to make actually a prototype, because you don't need a hardware, you don't need a pair of glasses with a camera, you don't need an app, you don't need software. Well, you need software, yeah. And the other development is that I'm also in the early phases of a cooperation with the Technical University of Eindhoven, with a group of students who are willing, well, kind of to cooperate. With students, it's very important that they kind of do their own thing, right? So, yeah, I'm quite happy to inform you that last year I won the Dutch Design Awards with a portfolio with, among others, the Emotion Whisperer. And also, I'm not sure, you probably haven't seen it, but a couple of weeks ago, it was King's Day, 27th of April. And the king was in Eindhoven, and I actually presented my work to the king. So that was a kind of pleasant thing to happen. So I've said a lot of things. Hopefully it's a little bit clear, but that's really up to you. I have a very straightforward, or I have a very directed question to you. So I see a big value in making the Emotion Whisperer available, or I mean, to make it a social project. So that means that I want to skip from the idea that's my product, that I own the rights, because, well, first of all, I think that is not really in line with my thoughts and my way of working. Secondly, because I think it will take a long time for this to develop. And then thirdly, I think I see a value in making it social so that many parties can do something with it. So how I want to do that. So what I said, I want to, first of all, I want to go to universities if they or their students are willing to do anything with it. So maybe a university can put it in their curriculum. So that's one way. The other way is to basically invite other professionals to, if they are interested to, offer what they like to do with it. And I could say, okay, that could be somebody's building apps, somebody is a communication in a communication company, anything. So of course, I think some parties are more interesting than other parties. But so this is also for me. I'm in this first phase of thinking this, but I'm looking to ways to do this. And my questions to you, first of all, for the Q&A, do you have any questions? Something unclear? Do you want to know more? Happy to inform you on that. And the second question, maybe you can think about that. Maybe some feedback on my intention to make it a social project. And perhaps some of you are also interested in thinking about it or finding ways to work on this. Maybe you're a professional, you want to be in some kind of social relevant projects. I do like to mention that this is not a voluntary project. I'm not a social friendly organization doing stuff for free on a voluntary basis. I don't think that works. I think if you want to, maybe my vision is that, as a designer, is that to create social equality through innovation. And I think a way to reach that is, doing things voluntary. That's not a good signal. Because, stakeholders, they get asked on a voluntary basis to participate. But basically what happens is you keep them in the same position. You don't evaluate them. And I think in order to create change in society, you're talking about really big organizations such as the overheid, I don't know the Dutch words, the government, and or care insurance companies, they don't do voluntary stuff. It's commercial stuff. So that eventual cooperation on a social base is also turns around financing, and I think I think that financing can be if you turn it into a social project and with a social relevant cause, then financing is difficult but more available. So these were my questions. I repeat questions: how it works, what. 2, feedback on the social character of the emotion whisperer, and 3, Do you have ideas? Do you want to participate yourself? Do you know somebody? So I am looking forward to your questions.
Everyone, first, thank you, Simon, for your elaboration on your project and your questions yourself. I think Ernst wants to ask something.
Yes, I have a question. So thanks for the explanation. Very interesting. What I would like to know regarding the functionality of the device, how do you get the spatial information? So you have a camera in your glasses and you turn in a certain direction and then you feel an emotion. So this is how you know from which direction it is coming or from which person maybe.
Yeah. So like I said, there's been made some choices based upon also experiments and talking to people, but mainly by experiment, almost analog experiments, which are very useful. First, we wanted to execute the vibration, the emotions. Well, it's not actually emotions, but it's body language. That's an important shift, because emotions I'm able to hear, in body language, silence, and they are more important to me. But first, we executed this body language through sound, but that was a breach of the quality of a conversation, you know, because it's a third one talking. The functionality, there is a pair of glasses with a camera. It streams video imaging to a smartphone, and that smartphone recognizes the body language that sends that data to the wearable, and so you can feel the body language through a tactile pattern. I think your question is the functionality. Well, the functionality is this. You know, you don't want to have a telephone in your hands in the conversation. That's so making a pair of glasses with a camera, that's more difficult, extra hardware. It's also more difficult because in order to stream video imaging wirelessly, then you need a very big, very large battery. So that's, I can, for now, so this, first of all, this pair of glasses with a camera is not developed yet. But secondly, if we're planning to do that this year, and if we're going to do that, the camera will be, well, relatively not that big, but it will be connected to the smartphone through a cable. And why a pair of glasses? Because when you're visually impaired, you can direct the pair of glasses to somebody where the sound is coming from. While we're talking, I really start to do it myself. You know, you see me looking that way, but I can hear where somebody is talking. I can hear it pretty good. So, and that's why, you know, the pair of glasses, it's naturally to turn to the person who's talking.
Yeah, I see. That makes sense. Huh? And you can of course validate the tactile device without the camera and the image analysis software by having a person filling in, sitting kind of behind you and pressing buttons so that you get this tactile information.
Certainly, yeah, that's what we did. So
yeah,
we first prototype. Actually, that prototype had vibration parts, and we even made a yeah, we call it in Dutch leermodule. It's a teaching module. It is a computer program where actually there's a training, an education tool that you can learn the 80 different tactile patterns So that was actually just a course, a computer with a connected wearable, and then a program that you could follow. You could turn it on, it would speak to you, it would say, okay, now you feel this better, and now you feel this better. So it's also made for the visually impaired. And then and at the end, it also, so it got these elements of how do you teach somebody? So there's these steps of education. And so these validation research was canceled, but the research we did before, so the vooronderzoek, let's say the tryouts, they showed that these patterns were not being able to learn, and so could not be able to recognize. We still need to do that research in order to, you know, be to say if we are correct with that suspicion. But we have yeah. So you might notice that I'm quite a long talker.
Yeah. No, don't worry. I do the same. So. So I'm interested in these patterns. So you kind of already answered that looking for the right patterns is a challenge. So there is no repertoire you can build upon. You have to invent this vocabulary of vibrational stimuli yourself.
Yeah.
And how did you approach this? How did you? Is there something out there? Is there a standard out there, or do you really have to start from scratch? Do you take inspiration from music, or how do you approach this?
Well, the components that we're using are there. And there are companies busy with haptic information, so tactile information through vibrations. There are custom-made, or there are commercial wearables with vibration parts. Of course, everybody has the experience of a vibration part in the smartphone. So the experience, everybody has that experience already. And yeah, how did we approach it? Well, the way that we approach it, so like I said, I try to do a lot of research, and beginning just from scratch, right? Start small, and basically where I started with was just somebody tapping me on the arm. So my girlfriend, I asked her, okay, just tap me like this on the arm. Here, one here, one here, one very slow, one's faster, and just all kinds of experiments on the skin, swiping movements, you know, and trying to create a connection between the pattern. You know, this is a pattern, but this is also a pattern. You understand?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. It's not so. It is not only a rhythm, but it is also spatial information where on your skin you are touched.
That's right.
You take it also into account. Interesting. And did you talk to musicians or composers, you know, who could maybe compose a rhythm that corresponds to a gesture?
That's, yeah, I didn't speak to musicians, but that's a very interesting idea. Like, I just want to mention, we did all sorts of experiments, because now we ended up with a wearable on the arm. But initially we looked at using the fingers. So 6 places, one vibration part here, one vibration part here, one vibration part here, So, and then we found out that that didn't work, because when you felt a vibration here and it was too strong, you felt it here as well. So you could not differentiate. We went through all sorts of ideas that we tested out, that we kind of also tested it on how does it work in daily life by just making, how do you say that, just mock-ups and carry them along for a week. And but what you're saying is very interesting, because it is, a pattern that could be an idea. You could also say, so you're translating body language, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at that body language, you see, somebody raising eyebrows, a smile, eyebrows, two eyebrows, and you can translate it in abstract figures, two bows, a mouth, a circle, smile, almost like emoticons. That is difficult to translate with vibration parts.
Yeah.
Because of vibration parts, that's just difficult, because information is too complex. So perhaps I can tell you a little bit more about that later. But it's an idea. There is one critical note. So at a certain point, we built the first, or the technical university built the first product prototype. It was a telephone with open source software, and it executed the recognized emotions through the internal vibration part of the telephone. And first of all, these vibrations also had some kind of Morse code. Mm-hmm. They were not, I could not understand them. So perhaps I had to learn that.
I think, frankly, if you make it that complicated, it will not be on this unconscious emotional level like you perceive a body gesture. So you need, I think, probably more indeed several tones superimposed. Yeah. And I know there are many questions in the comments, and Margot probably wants to bring them forward right now. But one more thing, did you also think about something else than vibration, like temperature? Cooling or heating?
Yeah, I've done research. I also hired somebody to do research. Fundamental research on, for instance, the senses, and mainly on the sense feeling. And also we did some experiments, right? The different forms of temperature, but it was not accurate enough. So the information you can give through is not diverse enough. Actually, that works the same as one vibration part. It basically can only pass through two forms of information, on or off. And of course, you can create a pattern. But I think perhaps there are more questions. Do you think? I think it would be very interesting to talk further with you. Would you like that?
I'm always open for talking.
Okay, and how
do we help you to get in touch? Absolutely, it would be.
I can connect you guys.
But there's many other questions from other people who are not,
Simon, I can connect you with Ernst after as well, if you'd like. To get some other questions in that are in the chat. We have a question from Wout who's first making a statement and then asking a question. He's saying, I understand that you would like to make communication and interactions easier. In order to achieve that, you want to translate body language to vibrations on your skin and then recognize it. And his question is, why don't you use sound vibrations on the skin of your ear and use earpods? As in you hear the body language in your ear.
Yeah, you hear the definition, you mean. You hear somebody saying it is looking angry, now he's looking very hateful, or now he's happy. So just a short definition of your question.
Wout, can you please elaborate a little bit? Also welcome to unmute if that is preferred. But
oh, okay. I just wonder, to make it simple, because I think if there's an easy way, why don't you use the easy way? It can be like, of course, it can be a description. Okay, smile, that's the simple way, but it could be a sound, like an emotional sound, to get exactly the translation of the body language into the right emotion by a sound, by a melody, by something like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. All of these options we have tried as well. So like I said in the beginning, we wanted to execute it through sounds. And actually we didn't really try melodies or tones. But also we didn't participate on that because we found out that if you use sound in any way, either when you put it on these bone conductor earphones or just speaking out loud, it disturbs the conversation, because this is what happens. There is what happens if you listen, if you hear additional information, that creates another form of cognitive energy. So it takes a little bit of the concentration away. So we didn't do research on this, but we found out by experience that using sound lowers the quality of a conversation. That's why we spend our energy on doing it through the skin. So the key of the emotion whisper is raising the quality of a conversation. It is not specifically about making body language accessible. So that's a big difference. So I look not only at the way you can translate stuff through technology, but I look as well at how it can integrate in daily life, but also with the core element of raising the quality of communication. A conversation is based upon trust. It's based upon intimacy. All of these things that disturb that lower the quality.
I hope that answers your question, Wout.
I would be interested to hear your reaction.
Okay, yeah, I understand your point. You want to raise the quality. I think as a starting point, it would help, and maybe develop from there further. Because I think if you get the vibrations on your skin, it also disturbs a little bit. It's always, because you always need to learn something new to get the feeling or what's happening around you.
That's correct. You need to learn. You need to. It's actually. It looks like an educational program. My suspicion, also based upon documentation, that when you learn it for how long would that take? 1 week, 1 hour. Well, let's say a month, 1 hour a day. Then in practice, and this is all theoretical, but let's say one month, an hour a day, then using it in practice. And my suspicion is that the tactile information becomes as intuitive as looking at somebody's body language. That's a suspicion, but it would be very, I think, okay, there's no or little documentation on this. So I think, okay, well, it would be very interesting to just try this out, to just do some research to that. University of Amsterdam, they don't know this answer. They're not aware of any documentation. So, but it would be very interesting to find that out.
And we also have to learn to read body language. And Xavier actually is asking whether there are differences in cultures and between men and women. That's something we have to learn.
Aaron's taking my job now.
Sorry.
Okay. So, just to point out, Xavier asked, is there big differences or nuances in body language between men and women or people with different cultural backgrounds?
Yes.
The question is that already something that you're incorporating? That's not per se his question, because I think there is definitely differences in some way, but I guess the more specific question is, are you taking that into account when developing this tool?
Yeah, I'm taking this in account. My main focus is upon, now it's upon just making things work, making things able to work. So on technology and validation research, I think there's little different. I think there is none or little difference between interpreting information through the skin, whether you are a man or a woman, or when you're from the Netherlands or Germany or Japan. I'm actually quite, this is, perhaps there are some differences, but there, for the research, I can dismiss them. It doesn't play a real major part of the research. But it is indeed that body language, so body language depends also on culture. And Japanese people, they have a different way of executing their emotions and their body language. So there is a difference indeed. It's certainly something I will take into account. It will take also research into documentation on if these differences are there, and I think if they are then there, then you can just say, okay, if the product is for Japanese, then you can say, okay, well then we just need to slightly change the software that recognize the body language. And perhaps also slightly change the patterns on the skin. Perhaps that's not even necessary. So, is that an answer?
Maybe can you let us know if that answers your question a little bit? Not sure. Not seeing any messages. I hope okay. Silence means it's right. If not, then Xavier, feel free to ask a little bit more if you want to. Sure. In the meantime, we get a question. What is your view on Neuralink Corporation of Elon Musk?
Sorry?
The Neuralink Corporation of Elon Musk. Have you heard of it? And if so, what do you think of it?
No, I know a couple of words. which is Elon Musk. What is your actually, I don't know what you mean with neuro-linguistical incorporation. Was that what the question was?
Neuralink Corporation.
Neuralink. I have no idea what it means.
What do you want?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not an expert in this, but was in the news actually. He is trying to put some threads in the brain of the monkeys at the end as an experiment.
Ah, okay.
And actually what he wants is to actually kind of similar thing as you try to do.
Yeah.
But then he wants to get communication and compute straight to the brains of a person at the end. But he's starting doing this with monkeys. And at the moment, monkeys can play a video game already.
Yeah.
So it's not the vibration on the skin; it's directly into your brains.
Yeah. No, I think that's really fascinating. You know, it would solve a lot of hardware problems. I do think you still need the camera, the glasses with the camera, and also the body language recognition. No, I think that's very interesting. I know, for instance, that the University of Utrecht, the UMC, university. Well, anyway, the medical center of the University of Utrecht, they are also have been for a while and successfully developing a robotic arm that can be controlled by the brains. So that works similar. And I think that is very similar to what Elon Musk is doing. So that means that by thinking, it basically works like this. You have no arm, right? And then they put this robotic arm on it that does precisely the same. I hope you can see my arm moving. And does precisely the same. But then the question is, how are you going to control that? And so just by thinking, I want to pick that there up, you think, okay, and then it starts to do that. I'm not quite sure if it's in that very complex phase yet, but I do know that at this point, it's the level that you're able to move it by thinking.
So this triggered me, or this just made me aware that maybe the interesting part of your project is not so much the camera and the image analysis. I think that's probably rather trivial, huh? But the human body has 2 square meters of skin, huh? And if you get this vibration, this tactile sensation, right, you create a very, very powerful interface. And did you think about other applications beside sensing body language? I mean, this can be used for many things, I guess, huh? As additional input. Huh?
Certainly, yeah. Like, I agree with you. You know, a camera, a pair of glasses with a camera. That's not very interesting. Or okay, that's some work, but it's not very interesting. It already exists, perhaps with some difficulties now, and building an app not so exciting as well. Facial expression recognition, body language recognition, already exists as well, and. But the interesting thing is indeed tactile information. And I agree with you. You have, the body has about 2 square meters of skin. Not all of these, not all of that 2 square meter. I mean, 2 square meter is as sensitive as other parts. The back, for instance, is less sensitive, but you have way more space, right? So sensitivity is also the amount, the amount you are able to feel per square centimeter. That's basically sensitivity. Yeah, there are other applications. This is basically information through the skin. I can say, okay, these are patterns, or some patterns. I think, okay, well, it's very interesting to, you know, I started to think, okay, well, you know, what is very interesting? So you're able to create letters, you know, alphabet. Then I think, okay, well, if that is possible, why not create phonetic alphabets? So that's more efficient, right? Because you have 2 letters at the same time. Then I started to think, okay, well, why not create some kind of iconography, you know, symbols, one word. Innovation Café on Thursday, the 13th of 2021 in tactile icons. And I think, okay, that's efficient because that's fast. And I think, okay, that's a whole new language. That is a universal language, I could say. So I'm kind of spreading also my way of thinking, right? I would also say that whole back, you know, we have a large, everybody, the largest available skin on the body is the back, because women, they have breasts. It's not that limits the space, but a back, perhaps a little bit less sensitive, but it's big, it's useful. You can say, you can use that for many other things. Yeah.
The feet also come to my mind. Huh? The sole of your feet is quite sensitive. Huh? So.
It's a little less functional because you normally wear shoes. But
space where you can put stuff, huh? In a shoe, you can. That's a variable you usually have, huh? So.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So once again, I like to open up the ideas, and that's basically what we do now, right? Because I'm talking to you, and you say, I think all of you ask very relevant questions, which kind of trigger me as well. But also, I'm not sure. I don't know what your name is. You're from Germany. Is that correct?
I'm originally from Austria.
Austria. And what's your name?
Ernst Galucek.
Who?
Ernst Galucek. It's a Czech name. When you're from Vienna, you have either Czech or Hungarian name.
Yeah. So Ernst, yeah, Ernst, you are, you know, you're sketching out very interesting things, you know, like the shoes, and you have you clearly have, you know, you have a broad mind, thinking in possibilities.
Oh, thanks. That's a nice compliment.
So that's also why I want to talk further with you.
We definitely can arrange that. Huh?
I will make sure you guys are connected via email afterwards.
Yeah, that would be great fun. I would enjoy it.
So just to give the other people some chance, do you have some more questions? I would perhaps also like to use some quick feedback on my initiative to make it a social project.
I actually was wondering about that, because you mentioned at one hand, sorry, this is Margot speaking, by the way. You mentioned at one side making it kind of open source, and on the other hand, you were mentioning something about not really believing in doing things voluntarily. How do you see that working together? Maybe I understood the idea that you have about voluntarily wrong, but basically what I expected it is that you're saying that you do expect to have some kind of income from this. But maybe I misunderstood this.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Yeah, I didn't say I was going to make it open source. That's one. However, I do think that's a possibility. But indeed, you know, I'm not a social organization. I need to make a living, and I see a lot of organizations and initiative, and even the Ministry of Health in the Netherlands, that they still have the idea that inclusion and equality, basically the emotion whisperer is about equality. It's about equality of communication, but that in fact, it is actually about equality for the visual impaired target group, or even those who can benefit from tactile information. But I see a lot of initiatives, and I have the feeling they still have the idea that it's inclusion is a favor and not a right. And okay, you can think that perhaps it's a nice idea that you say, okay, it's a favor. We want everybody to understand it's important, but just practically that just doesn't work, because you know, you give people the freedom to decide for themselves. And perhaps when you're somebody as a part, somebody individually, okay, that can work. But when you're talking about greater organizations like the government, or even art institutions, or like a train station, or insurance companies, you know, then if it's a favor, they say, okay, but we don't have to do it. We have other priorities. Perhaps we do a little bit for inclusion. We mention that on our website and say, okay, Luca's doing good. But then when you look at what they're actually doing, it's not a lot, because it's a favor. You know, you don't have to do nothing. When you are looking at the implementation of inclusion and diversity, and when you want to implement that in, for instance, retail, companies, in organizations, in anywhere where money is playing, is an important factor. So every organization that is not a social organization, anything other than that, you know, that doesn't work, because everybody has different priorities. They have priorities of money, a shop making their shop accessible, you know, okay, but it's okay. The priority wise, it's very far low. They don't know how to do it. They don't have the financing for it, and they don't see the benefit of it. These three factors. And when they have a shipment that is late, or somebody is somebody working there, I don't know the English words. When that happens, that is a priority. I'm afraid I'm kind of acting as a preacher, trying to convert those who are not converted. That's not my what I want. Perhaps I'm also rambling too much. Would be very interesting to hear a couple of you how you think about this.
I don't think it's really a preaching type of thing, because I mean, inclusion is very important, and I mean, this is a topic that's not just for visual impairment, but in any type of way, like it's an important thing to consider. So I definitely don't think that's a preaching type of thing. What I'm curious about is, do you feel like also if people want to comment on this, please do so and unmute yourself. I'm wondering if you feel like there's not enough communication actually with the people that are dealing with visual impairment in your case, from the government, to actually for them to fully understand the full problem of it.
Yeah, it's more complex than that. And I think if I say yes, then that doesn't. That is too black and white.
Okay.
Now, like you said, Margot, I would say since I think since 2014, 2013, perhaps, there's been a lot of attention for inclusion, diversity, accessibility. You know, you can see that in the racism debates, Me Too discussion. That basically also fits in 17 million people. People were all diverse. So it's, first of all, it's not, inclusion and diversity is not a black and white definition, because it's much broader and deeper than that. You cannot say if we make everything accessible for blind people, then we are inclusive. Inclusion is way more. It is basically about equality between men and women, between colored people and non-colored people, between Dutch people with a native background and Dutch people with a Turkish or Moroccan background, between people who do innovation and people who do bakery. That's a kind of silly statement, but it kind of, yeah. And but okay, so it's way more complex. So it needs it. That means that it takes way more time. Way more time. I would even say that if you want to get 10% 10% higher on that scale, then that's going to take you at least one generation. So that kind of 10 to 20, yeah, I would say 10 to 15% raising of that level of inclusion and diversity. Then that takes at least one generation. So that shows how difficult it is, to my opinion, right? How difficult it is to create that change. But to get back to your question, Margot, I don't know, but there are two very important facts that can illustrate your question, or that can, which is one, this is factual information, right? So somewhere early 2000s, the United Nations created a resolution. The United Nations created a resolution for the rights of the handicapped. Not sure if that's a proper English translation, but that's where it is about. So somewhere early 2000, and the Netherlands, they signed. You only need to sign it. There's no, it's not that you say, okay, it doesn't say that you need to do certain things before a certain time. You only need to say, okay, I have the intention to do this. That's the only thing. And the Netherlands, they signed this resolution as one of the latest of the European Union in 2016. That's a fact. Another fact is a couple of years ago, there was an evaluation of the level of inclusion and diversion, or yeah, inclusion and diversion for okay, sorry. There was this test of the level of inclusion and diversion per European country. So every European country of the European Union had to do this test, which was very objective. How many public toilets are there per square meter? These kind of things. And factually, the Netherlands also scored as one of the poorest. So, and then you're talking, you know, I think it's very strange. The Netherlands is one of the northern European countries that are have welvaart. I don't know the English words. That are have a high welfare status. So it's a rich country. They have a supreme care system, somewhat of a supreme schooling, education, social network, social security system, and then it scores that poor. But then, okay, who are in the European Union? Spain, Italy, Greece, you know. So, and Margot, so I'm kind of using this as an answer to your question. It's just a question from me to you, Margot. I don't want to draw conclusions out of it, but can you do that for me? Can you? Is this an answer to your question?
Well, what to me comes, I don't know if people have heard of this, but there's this image, obviously like a bit tricky for you, but there's this image that really shows like the equity versus equality thing. So like equality is like giving everyone, if there's a fence and you want to look over the fence, and equality is giving everyone a box to stand on so they can look over the fence, and equity is like giving the size box that everyone needs to be able to look over the fence. And for me, like what it sounds like from most of it is making it accessible is not equity in a way, as in it doesn't give people that are visually impaired like all of the tools that they need to fully function as everyone else can. And I think in that way, like there's a lot to gain and a lot to make better in a way. So I mean, for me, it's obviously I don't live with it every day, so I don't run into the same issues in that way. So for me, that's tricky to see if it's, but from what I've heard from you, like I feel like there's still so much to gain in that way. And Xavier is actually mentioning in the chat that there's a parliament member from the VVD for the national government who lives in Veldhoven and is almost completely blind. So it might actually be interesting to get in touch with them. He's called Daan de Kort. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah. Yeah, this could be a discussion that could be well, how long? How long? Well, at least 1 hour longer.
Yeah, and we're already running out of time now, so that's maybe not enough for this time.
No, you could, you know, I kind of want to invite myself for a next Innovation Café. I do want to invite myself for the next Innovation Café just to talk about stuff like this. And I think, Margot, you are a very interesting conversation partner. But also, I think, you know, the audience for the Innovation Café, they're all, you know, they're doing innovation, but, you know, they have the experience of developer teams and how that works. And for instance, also how, you know, how can you create, how can you make sure that the outcome of what you're developing and making also is accessible, first of all, accessible to many people. And I know that that starts at the product owner. So it's also, once again, a lot to do with financing. So I think this theme of inclusion and in the diversity is also very interesting for the audience of those who are interested in innovation. But then again, of course, you can disappoint me, of course, also, and just by not inviting me.
I am definitely open to have you back on the Innovation Cafe at some point. So let's get in touch about that a little bit later via email. I think if there are no more questions, because it's already past 7, we're going to have to round up. Just give me a second just to see if there's any last questions that anyone has. Just waiting for a minute.
Maybe can you download all these questions? Is there
the questions that we got in the chat, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will make sure to include them.
Can you send them to me? I'll be interesting to see all these questions.
I mean, this is so we did ask you all the questions that were in the chat, so that's definitely there.
Yeah.
But I will send them to you. That's not a problem at all. But I don't think there's any more questions from our audience now. So I think in that way we're gonna round up. So I really want to thank you, Simon, for your presentation and also answering all of your questions and your interesting insights.
My pleasure. Yeah.
I also want to thank the audience for joining us, even though we're a smaller group than usual. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it. And I also hope that everyone will be joining us again next week. If you want to have a look at the program, you go to ehvinnovationcafe.org. And yeah, we hope to see you again next week. So thanks for joining and have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks.